Okay, today we're going to be addressing the pro-choice argument number 3, what I consider pro-choice argument number 3, which is that it is a clump of cells, so you can do with it as you want, okay? So that's what we're going to be addressing today. If you haven't seen my previous videos, pro-choice argument number 1 was about the argument because of rape, and number 2 had to do with ectopic pregnancy and other medical conditions where you would have medical necessity for an abortion. So if you haven't seen those, check those out. They're on my website. Otherwise, we are going to get right into this video about is it just a clump of cells, okay? A lot of the information that I'm going to share is from this website right here, Live Action, so you can find like, I'm going to go through this quickly so that it's fast. If you like wonder about me backing up one of these statements, most of the time they're from this website. You're welcome to go there, and they tell you more about the names of the scientists and different things associated with this argument, okay? All right, so let's get right into it, okay? It is a central question in the abortion debate: when does life begin? And that's really what this has to do with, because if you just have a clump of cells, then it's not really like a life, right? It's a clump of cells, okay? Like, I could have a clump of cells, you know, that's what like a skin tag is. If somebody gets a skin tag, it's just a clump of cells and you can like shave it off, right? So is that what a human being is, okay? What a baby is. Science teaches without reservation that life begins at fertilization, at conception. It is a scientific fact that an organism exists after fertilization that did not exist before. This new organism has its own DNA distinct from the mother and father, meaning that it is a unique person. So this tells you right there that we're not just dealing with a clump of cells. But as a side note, I mean, aren't we all really just clumps of cells, okay? Some of us are big clumps of cells and some are small clumps of cells, okay? But that's not really what we're talking about, because when they say these terms, clump of cells, they're trying to imply that it's not really this separate living creature, okay? So back to what we were talking about, this new organism at conception, this new little organism literally has its own distinct DNA from the mother and father. It has its own DNA, it has its own blood. Okay, this is a completely separate person, a unique person, as this says. As the embryo grows, it develops a heartbeat 22 days after fertilization. So something can't grow unless it's alive, which means as this embryo is growing, it's obviously alive. So we're not dealing with something that's not alive. This is a living creature. Okay, and after only 22 days after fertilization, it has its own heartbeat, okay? It has its own circulatory system, its own organs. From fertilization, guys, from fertilization, it is a new organism that is alive and will continue to grow and develop as long as nutrition is provided and its life is not ended through violence or illness, okay? So this is the first thing that we have to establish when we're talking about the argument for abortion, meaning that it's just a clump of cells so you can do as you wish. This is clearly unscientific to even suggest that, because this is literally its own little unique human being from the beginning. You know, humans can look all different ways, and they do, even out of the womb. Humans look all different shapes, all different sizes. You know, some people are born with no eyes, like my daughter, okay? And I'll provide a link in the description if you want to know about her story. Some people are born with half a brain, or practically no brain. Some people are born with no noses. Like, I never knew when I was younger that these things are real. But these conditions, like, it seems like, how can somebody be born with no nose? Give me a break. Yeah, it's actually true, okay? And there's all sorts of other crazy conditions out there. And it's not always a negative thing, okay? People can be born all different ways and all different shapes and sizes. So what is different? You know, this little clump of cells, they want to say it's a human being with its own DNA, its own organs and circulatory system and everything inside of the mother. It's just a different shape and size than what it's going to look like, you know, 7 or 8 or 9 months from then when it's born out of its mother's womb. Okay, it's still human. Even when you start getting into like college textbooks and stuff, they literally admit it, right? So this textbook, Before We Are Born, Essentials of Embryology, and this isn't even a Christian book. Let's look what it says. It says the zygote, formed by the union of an oocyte and a sperm, is the beginning of a new human being. They even admit it right there. It's the beginning of a new human being. Okay, somebody unique and different, not a clump of cells to be thrown in the garbage can. Here's another example from another scientific work. These are scientific works that have nothing to do with the Lord or Christianity. The book called Human Embryology and Teratology. This is what they said. Fertilization is an important landmark because under ordinary circumstances, a new genetically distinct human organism is thereby formed. Okay? This third embryology textbook is as clear as the first two. Fertilization is the beginning of a new life, the start of a new distinct human organism. And actually, I don't seem to have that quote with me, but the point remains right here, what we just went over, which is that fertilization literally is where life begins. You have a new human being, not a clump of cells. So if they literally admit that in even scientific textbooks, how come they can't be honest enough about that when they're when you go to a place like Planned Parenthood or something and they're trying to, murder your child for you and throw it in the garbage can, and they just say it's a clump of cells there? Why can't they have the same decency to admit that it's a unique human being that they're dealing with? And even National Geographic put it this way: the two cells gradually and gracefully become one. This is the moment of conception, fertilization, when an individual's unique set of DNA is created, a human signature that never existed before and will never be repeated. And this is the National Geographic that we're talking about, which is definitely not Christian or coming from a Christian perspective. So this issue is not really up for debate. At no point in time is this little human just a clump of cells that should be scraped away and thrown into the garbage can. From the very get-go, this tiny little human, though a different shape, and form, literally has all of their DNA makeup to be the unique and beautiful human being that God made them to be. And this is why I made this another one of my videos you can check out, which is the main reason not to have an abortion, which is that you have a unique human being inside of you that will never exist ever again. Then I have this quote from Dr. Alfred Bongiovanni, professor of pediatrics and obstetrics, University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. This is what he said: I am no more prepared to say that these early stages represent an incomplete human being than I would be to say that the child prior to the dramatic effects of puberty is not a human being. I have learned from my earliest medical education that human life begins at the time of conception. And this is consistent with exactly what we're talking about, which is, he's saying, look, just because a kid hasn't gone through puberty doesn't mean that they're not a complete human being, any more than, any stage after conception. So humans look different, through different stages of life. It's still life, Now, Professor Eugene Diamond stated, now this was about the original Roe v. Wade ruling in the 70s when they first established that. This is what he said. He said, either the justices were fed up backwards biology or they were pretending ignorance about a scientific certainty. Because the whole idea about abortion being legal at all has to do with the fact that they're denying the humanhood of these children, the humanity of these babies. That's what they have to do in order to legalize it in any way. Otherwise, and I've heard it said before, that if they would recognize the humanity of a fetus, of a baby, of these clump of cells that they want to call them, then they would suddenly have rights, and therefore the right to life, and you wouldn't be able to take that away because of any of these arguments for abortion. Now I'm going to share this woman's story just a little bit, and it's also on that live action website that I quoted at the beginning. This is about a mom whose baby died, miscarried naturally, at 14 weeks old, okay? And she intentionally shares pictures of her baby, and they buried their baby, I believe, and set up a little memorial to him, to remember him, because they recognized his humanity. Okay, this wasn't something that she wanted. She didn't have an abortion, but she shared this so that people would know what they're doing, when it comes to this argument about abortion. Okay, does this look like a clump of cells to you? Because this baby was only 14 weeks along. 14 weeks along, that's barely past, and most women don't even know until they're I think 5 to 8 weeks pregnant. This is only a few weeks after that, guys. Does this look like a clump of cells? Look at that tiny little hand and the tiny little foot, right? This woman was amazing, and she saved a lot of babies because of people literally reading her story, seeing the pictures, and realizing that these doctors have lied to them, and it is not a clump of cells that they would be throwing away if they choose to have an abortion. And this is her baby's sweet face that she shared. I believe she had a boy, and they named him and everything. But like, come on, does this look like a clump of cells to you? This is not a clump of cells. The argument that what you have inside of you is a clump of cells and therefore you can do with it as you wish is disgusting, okay? And I have heard so many arguments when it comes to the abortion thing. I've heard just some of these obscene arguments where they say, sure, they say it's a clump of cells. You know what else they call these babies? Tumors. It's just a tumor. Like I've heard at pro-life protests, outside of Planned Parenthood. I've heard some of these pro-choice people scream, at the pro-life people saying, it's just a tumor, it's a bleeping tumor. And I personally have had people attack me online when I've said stuff before about pro-life stuff. Then they say, it's a parasite, it's just a parasite on my body. I don't want that thing growing on me. It's not a parasite. Look at that hand. This is a human being made in the image of God. Even if it's tiny, even if it's a different form, this is a unique human being. So that argument that this is something that's a group of cells or a tumor or a parasite, whatever you want to call it, and you can throw it away is completely absurd and without merit. Now what I'm going to show you is a quick clip, actually. I think it's only like 30 seconds long. This is amazing. I'm assuming this was done in a petri dish, probably because of in vitro, which is a whole nother issue that I'm not going to get into in this video. But I think that's the only way that they could record it. And scientists have literally seen the moment of conception. There's actually a flash, a physical flash of light that happens at the moment of conception. It's amazing. And what is happening when we see that? So the sperm enters the egg, and it isn't when the sperm first goes through the outside layer of the egg. It's when it gets to the center, like the nucleus, I guess, or whatever, of the egg. When it gets in there and touches that, it literally becomes one, and you see a flash of light. When you see that flash of light, boom, that's literally what scientists have marked as the moment of conception. That is when you have a new human being, a brand new human being. And I want you guys to see it for yourself because it's really one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So I'm going to play this real quick so you guys can see. This is actual footage. There you have it. There was the flash of life. Flash of light. That's literally a new human being that was just created, guys, with its own DNA and its own physical makeup. There, it's on a loop, so it just showed you the same thing again. But that's literally the moment of conception. That is a new human being, okay? It's irrefutable, even scientifically speaking. And I'm not one to really care too much about what science has to say these days because it's like its own religion. But even according to science, that's a new human being. Conception just happened. That baby's gonna have its it literally at this time, like its DNA has joined together. It has its own DNA. The DNA is not the same as the mother, and it's not the same as the father. This is a separate new human being. So anything that inhibits that human being from growing now, that's called murder. Okay? So, like, if I don't give my kids water and I refuse to let them have water and something happens to them and they die, guess what? I will be arrested for murder because I kept them from something that was going to give them life. And that's what we're dealing with right here. If you stand in the way of this human being, intentionally stand in the way of this human being, then becoming, everything that it needs to become and develop and grow, because it's already a separate human now, right? Genetically speaking, then that is murder, period. So I would say we've been able to unequivocally prove that the pro-choice argument that it is just a clump of cells is completely absurd. It is not just a clump of cells. Even at the moment of conception, you have something new and unique and beautiful and worth protecting. And no, there is not any reason that it is okay to murder that young new life. Okay, God bless you guys. If you liked this video, please share it with your friends so that we can get new subscribers. I am not monetized at all, and I will not be monetized because I'm not going to play YouTube's game. So I'm not saying that because I care about the money aspect, because I'm not getting any money. So I just want to get the message out about Jesus, about life, and all the other things that we can expose on this channel. So share this video with your friends, please. Subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't done that yet. And I pray that God blesses you and keeps you guys. Goodbye.